Hello, everybody. Walter Cotton here again with another installment on this MedSurg Prime vendor fiasco. And I've actually tried to stay in the background on this one, but as I called around to the other groups that are out there that are supposed to have their fingers on the pulse of this particular issue, I found a bunch of people asleep at the wheel. And I don't believe that the level of threat that this particular challenge, this particular court decision represents is resonating with people. So I thought I'd spell it out to you here because we need to get engaged and we need to get engaged now because this is one of the most egregious domestic threats that I've seen in my lifetime to this constitutional republic that we live in. And for those of you who need a reminder, let me go ahead and share the screen with you so that you can see what I see and you can smell what I'm cooking. The MedSurg Prime Vendor Program, just as a reminder, was the VA's effort to try to streamline their supply chain approach. And under the original configuration, there was designed to be a source of supply, which, given the Vets First regulation, everybody expected to be majority of veterans. There was supposed to be a 3PL or third-party logistics player, which was the prime vendors who were supposed to inventory, pick, pack, and ship these products to the medical facilities. Well, the VA made a decision to consolidate the function of supply as well as the function of 3PL under one organization, under one small group of organizations, which are the prime vendors. The problem with that particular decision is that it is a blatant violation of law. It is a blatant violation of the foundation of laws in the procurement arena, because not only does it violate a precedent that has been approved at the Supreme Court level, but it violates a consolidation and bundling requirement under the law. And here's where that becomes a problem when you're dealing with veterans and disabled veterans, right? Because when you take these veterans that were yesterday given an opportunity to provide supply and you take that ability away from them, you leave them with a greater level of despair. You leave them with a greater level of hopelessness. And what my major challenge is that in this particular instance or situation, it appears that the Veterans Administration was disingenuous as a part of this court proceeding. They did not tell the full story in terms of their options, which I think led this particular judge to making an erroneous decision. But I digress because I'm not going to go back and forth with people on this particular subject. I'm just going to give you the facts and let you make up your own decision or make up your own mind. So let's go back to the case itself, right? Let's look at the attributes of the case. And in a future video, I'll go ahead and break down every paragraph in this particular case. But in this particular instance or situation, right, this judge made a decision not to intervene, right, not to issue an injunction to cause VA to stop violating the law, because he, in my humble opinion, this is just Walter's humble opinion, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, and I don't play one on television, but based on my reading of the judge's code of ethics, the judge is supposed to be impartial as he meters out his decisions based on existing law. And when you're dealing with a law that has been ratified by all three branches of our government, right? The congressional branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch have all weighed in, then the judges at the lower court are obligated to point back to those precedents, to point back to those determinations when they're making their decision. Well, the judge didn't do that in this particular case, and I'm curious as to why, but I think we'll uncover that as we move forward. But let's kind of look at the core of what this judge's decision was based on. And when I got down to this, I mean, again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on television. But I saw this and I said, wait a second. Any prudent man who looks at this information would come to a different decision than what this judge came to. And let me go to the core of his argument, because the judge was asked to issue an injunction against the Veterans Administration and cause them to cease and desist this illegal action. So in order for the judge to make that determination, the judge had to decide 4 different areas. The first area was whether or not the plaintiffs had sufficiently argued their position, right, and satisfied the merits of the case. In this particular instance, there's no argument. As a matter of fact, the paragraph that precedes this says in no uncertain terms that the plaintiffs are correct, that the government is in violation of the Veterans First regulation. Game over, right? That's a decision, a determination that was ratified at the Supreme Court level at that particular point. Just based on that implication, the judge had the ability to issue an injunction and stop the VA from participating in this illegal behavior. But the judge didn't. The judge said, let me follow all 4 of these criteria and come to a decision based on the net of that particular measure. So we know measure 1, they found that they met the merits of the case. They found the government to be in violation of existing law. The second component that the judge had to decide was whether the plaintiff was going to be irreversibly harmed by this particular action. And I just showed you in this graphic example back here, right, that when you take these organizations that yesterday had legislative advantage and access to be distributors and suppliers to the system, and you remove them by consolidating that capability under the prime vendors, what you're doing is creating an economy of scale for the prime vendors that is going to be difficult to overcome, because they will now own all of the sources of supply and therefore pricing. And if you need a visible example of that, all you got to do is go to the VA's website, the VA's portal for prime vendor, and go down to the middle of the page where you can get access to the current formulary. This formulary is dated November 1st of 2018. And what you'll find if you do just a little bit of dissecting on that formulary, let me see if I can find my way to it. You're going to find a group of prime vendors that have the list of the products that they have available on their formulary. And in many instances, this formulary is pretty doggone robust. I want to say that they're approaching 20,000 items. But what I did was I took a look at the socioeconomic categories here. So let me get over to that particular area so that you can see it before I start spelling it out for you. It should be cell AT. Hang on just a second. Let me get over there to cell AT, where you see the socioeconomic breakdown. And what you find when you go from vendor to vendor is that there are more other than small business awardees on the supply side than there are any other category. Service disabled veteran, small business, when in point of fact, given the Vets First regulation, the majority should be veteran or disabled veteran owned, because they're currently suppliers of these products and services in this arena. But they decided not to do that, and ergo the current formulary, if you break it down, looks a little bit like this. The 3 major players have on average about 18,000 of these products that they bypassed the disabled veteran business community on and are delivering directly from the manufacturer. Something about that stinks. On average, about 1,800 of them are coming from veteran and disabled veteran-owned businesses. Well, the problem with this, folks, is that decision, right, the decision not to adhere to the existing laws and regulation have produced these measures of harm, these challenges, they have reduced the rate at which future generations will serve in the defense of this nation. That's making us unsafe. They have shrunk, they have reduced the industrial base in this great nation just by this one action. If we don't reverse it, if we don't produce an injunction and stop it, those veteran-owned, disabled, veteran-owned businesses that are a part of an already fragile ecosystem will just dissipate. They'll just disappear into the ether, and we'll have to absorb them through another part of our social system. Yet I digress. The point that I'm trying to make to you here is that you can go to the VA's own website and you can pull down an empirical example of how these prime vendors are avoiding the veteran and disabled veteran business community. And quite candidly, folks, as a business consultant myself, I don't blame them. They've got a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders, right, to maximize the value that they're producing for them. And if it comes at the cost of blood on their hands in this great nation, hey, they're willing to do that. That's why we have laws and regulations, right, like the Veterans First regulation that were designed to make sure that these things don't happen. But I want to go back to this judge's decision, right, because there was a component in this thing that just completely baffled me, and that was in the measure of public interest, because that was the pivot on which the judge rested his decision not to intervene. And the judge suggested that the public interest was better served by allowing the VA to participate in this illegal action or activity, because by not allowing them to participate in this illegal action or activity, we were putting veteran health at risk. Well, the truth of that matter, which has already been detailed in numerous congressional hearings and GAO reports, is that the veteran health, the ability of the Veterans Administration to supply the products or services that are needed to maintain the supply chain, would not be affected or disrupted by a failure in the prime vendor program, because they have other vehicles, whether it's the federal supply schedule, which many argue is a better solution for this need than the prime vendor program. They have the procurement cards that they can use in the event of emergency. My point very simply is that the argument that the judge used, that the public interest was greater served by allowing the Veterans Administration to do something illegal, just doesn't pass the prudent man test, in my humble opinion. Because in point of fact, and this is just, again, a layman giving you his point of view, the threat to the industrial base of this country by consolidating the need against or into these small group of vendors is a greater challenge, a greater threat to our national security than the public interest that this judge presented, which was not accurate. It was not an honest portrayal of the current situation, notwithstanding the fact that as these veterans find themselves disenfranchised because of this circumstance, and they spiral down into this place of depression or succumb to their PTSD, future generations are watching that. They're watching how we treat him or her who served. And they see the, standard thank you for your service that we get once a year during Veterans Day, and for the rest of the year, totally ignoring the veteran on your corner, on my corner, on his street, on Main Street, right? They see that and they make a determination as to whether or not they want to invest any of their future in the defense of this great nation. So my submission, my argument very simply, is that the public interest is not served by allowing a government agency to blatantly violate the rule of law, because in a constitutional republic, that is the foundation upon which the civility in our society rests. We know that we have a group of laws that everyone is accountable to. And if you violate that law, you pay the cost for it. But when a government agency, when an organization that's accountable for maintaining the standards that we have in this country, when we can't depend on them or the judiciary that's supposed to govern them to follow the law, we're opening the door to anarchy. And I am saying to every patriot, and you don't have to be a veteran to be a patriot. I'm talking every red-blooded American patriot. I'm telling you that it is your obligation. It is my obligation to send a clear and full-throated message to our Congress, to our elected officials, that we are not going to stand by and allow this type of domestic threat to come in and undermine the fabric of these United States of America. And for those of you that are veterans, I'm going to tell you what you need to do, what you need to do today. You need to become involved, engaged in your preferred veteran service organization. And my preference would be that you become a member of the American Legion, right? Because we are a powerhouse when it comes to influencing, if you will, the direction of our government. And I can tell you in no uncertain terms that we have our extra ammunition, we have our guns, our lawyers, and that's right, I said our guns, our lawyers, and our extra ammunition marshaled and focused on this particular issue, because this is the flashpoint for a very critical change that is occurring in this country. So our congressional leaders need you to be actively involved in your state, making sure that your congressional, your House member knows that we can't stand for this. Know that your senator knows that we can't stand for this. And that means that your local Legion post needs you actively involved, so that when we're making the call campaigns, they can call on you and count on you to ensure that you're getting the message across to our elected officials that this is a 2020 campaign issue. Don't support us on this, and we'll see you at the ballot box in 2020. I'm getting a little bit fired up, so I'm going to step back for a minute. I wanted to put this quick video together to frame the need, because folks, we absolutely positively need to get our feces amalgamated, because if we don't, the veteran preference is going to start going the way of the small disadvantaged business preference. And if you haven't been paying attention to that one, I suggest that you look at the outcome of another Supreme Court decision called the Rothy Supreme Court decision, and look what that's done to the small and disadvantaged business preference. That same type of outcome is available. It's possible for the veteran and disabled veteran business community if we allow this canary to fall over in the gold mine and we don't react to it at all. If you need some additional information, please come back to this channel. I recommend that you like and share this video as broadly as you possibly can, because this is not something that we can wait 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months to get done. It's something that we need to have changed now, and our goal is to have it influenced and affected by the time we turn the end of this year, before they hand the baton over to the new Congress. So we need you to get involved today. We need you to stay active. I'm going to put my email address in the description box to this video so that you can contact me directly if you need to know who you want to link up within your local community. But for right now, I need you to pick up the phone. I need you to call your local American Legion. I need you to call your local VSO organization if you're a member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars or the Paralyzed Veterans of America, and ask them, where are we at on this issue, and when are we going to be mounting the campaign to call Congress and request, no, dare I say, require them to issue a cease and desist order to the Veterans Administration for this very dramatic threat to the fabric of these United States of America. Well, folks, I could go on and on and on. Those of you who know me, been around for a while, you know that's the case. I'm going to try not to do that because this is very weighty information. I'll put together some more videos so that you understand it at a more granular level. But let me say in no uncertain terms, if we sleep on this one, if we allow them to get away with this one, it's not long before they start even some more aggressive actions. The law is the law. In a constitutional republic, the rule of law is the foundation upon which our order, our civility rest. When our government officials start blatantly violating those rules of law with the kind of logic that was employed in this particular court case, we got to ask ourselves, WTF, what is up? Are they coming after us now? It appears to be the case. And as I said in my previous video, we're servicemen and women. We don't start fights. We finish them. Join me as we finish this very critical battle. I thank you for your moment. I thank you for a moment of your time and attention.